Switching from science, he focused his attention on literature, history, and political science. He's armed with degrees in international politics from Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi and Syracuse University in New York, with a focus on Kashmir. He has worked as a political advisor on Kashmir, national and international security and legislative issues, as well as a journalist in the US, the UK, and India. He is the author of several acclaimed books, including Encounters, The Storyteller's Tale, and most recently, Jimmy the Terrorist, which incidentally was shortlisted for the 2009 Man Asian Literary Prize and went on to win the Vodafone Crossword Book Award. He currently handles the Kashmir and Tibet programs for the Frederick Naumann Foundation in South Asia and lives in New Delhi. Rishad, a writer with a travel bug and someone who is a trigger-happy shooting scenic locales and capturing his travel adventures for posterity on his camera. We're talking about Rishad Saam Mehta, author, travel writer, and photographer. And as you may have guessed, he loves adventure, writes about his travels and self-drive holidays to places of historical interest in India and across the world. His love for travel, adventure, and photography has resulted in him undertaking solo motorcycling trips across the Himalayas. If you desire to go on a driving trip from India to Singapore in 20 days and need some travel tips, ask Rishad. He's been there, done that. He's also participated in and won the Raid the Himalaya besides kayaking in the choppy Atlantic of Northern Ireland. His travel essays appear in India's leading dailies, travel magazines, and in-flight magazines. His book, Hot Tea Across India, is a hilarious collection of adventures from road trips in India.
That was a very detailed briefing, a lot more than I had sent across. I don't know about Rishad. So this is Rishad's book.
Okay.
And do you want to explain?
As she's very lightly said, it's basically a lot of people ask me whether it is a collection of the kind of teas you get in India, which is sadly not the case. When I thought about the name, it was because tea is such an integral part of travel in India. I mean, you might come across, even on the most loneliest roads, of course we have no toilets on our streets, on our roads, that's one thing. But on the loneliest roads, you might come across nothing, but you'll definitely find a chai ki dukan. And that is the reason why I thought that since I'm going to write about my little anecdotes from road trips across India, I thought I'll call it Hot Tea Across India because there's not a single trip or a journey where tea has not played a part. I mean, often it has started interesting conversations. Often it has, when I'm tired, it has refreshed me. Often when I'm scared, it has soothed my nerves. So that's why it's been called that. And I mean, I was fortunate enough to be able to do this book because I used to work with a magazine called Autocar India, where I was paid to go and travel to a different part in the country every month. So I did that for 8 years. So I went to 96 destinations across India, pretty much every state, and I wrote about it every month. So this book is basically a collection of those stories.
I mean, there's a lot in this about catching tea, which refreshes you when you're in riding through from across the Rohtang Pass, from Leh, escaping on Kargil with your motorcycle while somebody's trying to buy it forcibly.
Oh yeah.
Also, a very interesting story about how tea with unadulterated milk has certain consequences.
I know, that's direct dysentery.
Do you want to read that bit out?
I'm not, I mean...
Or you can talk about it.
Once I wrote that, I was a little, I mean, it's become a little embarrassing because that's the part people, I mean, the thing was that we were on this, my first assignment as a travel writer was to get to Delhi with no money, okay? Because I wanted to go for a trek in the Himalayas and I had to get to Delhi on short notice and the Rajdhani was absolutely waitlisted and I couldn't afford the flight. So basically, me and a friend of mine, we just stopped and flagged down a truck driver and told him that, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Agra. I said, okay, can you take us there? So he was quite nonplussed. But we just hopped in, and over 3 days we went to Agra. Now the thing is that just before Agra, we stopped at this at the Haryana Uttar Pradesh border. Yeah, we stopped there. And as usual, these guys had to go and bribe the guy and grease their palms and get clearances to get across the border. And I thought that I'll go and have a cup of tea. Now, so I went to this. It was still about 3:30 in the morning. So I went to this place and I told this guy that he's saying, I'm making tea. Okay, if you want, I can give you black tea. My milk hasn't arrived as yet. So I said, no, I'll wait. So I thought that now this is he starts milking the buffalo over there. And that's the milk that he gives. And this guy adds it straight to the tea and gives it to me. And of course, that milk is so rich in cream and all that. So I had it. It was very tasty, very refreshing. But after a few, my stomach started going pop, bang, boom, bam, And I really had to just go. So, and I didn't know, I mean, there was no toys, nothing. So it was quite dark. So I went, the first clear place I went and sat down over there. Now, that happened to be the charpoy of a dhaba. And, and those guys were sleeping all around it. So I'm blissfully halfway through when a lighting it comes on, and this guy gets up and says, "Aap kya kar?" Sorry, he says. So before, when you wake up, you are still in those doldrums of sleep, and you still don't know whether you can get out and all that. So I finished my stuff before he could really wake up, and he said, "Who will clean all this?" I started running away, and then fortunately it was really, I mean, he started chasing me, threw a lathi at me, but we got into the truck and we sped away. So it was a close escape. But since then, I have not done stuff like that. I mean, it's...
Come on, or you're just not admitting that you've done stuff like that?
Except just now. Just now, recently, when I went for this trip to Spiti, in Spiti just now, I'll show you the video once we finish. It was in January, and it was miserably cold. I'm talking about cold as in, not cold as in 5 degrees, 10 degrees. I'm talking about minus 20 degrees. So everything that toilet freezes. I mean, if you were small enough, you could ice rink on the toilet. It freezes solid and doesn't defreeze till April. So they closed that. There's no water. So when we were staying in Tabo, the whole you have to go on the helipad. And I mean, it is, first of all, it is miserable because it's cold. I mean, I know you can cover every part of your body, but you have to uncover a certain part to go. So it is pretty cold. And that's not it. It's like a communal thing. You're sitting there, and the whole village comes and sits in a ring round the helipad and starts chatting. That why have you come here? And you're sitting with your pants down, and they're just talking to you as if you're sitting in a bar and you're having a drink. It's as casual as that. आप क्यों यहाँ आए? क्या कर रहे हैं? आप क्या करते हैं? अच्छा लिखते हैं? अच्छा ठीक है वो बड़ा बढ़िया. I mean, it's not. There's no question of privacy. It's like a whole communal ring. The whole village is sitting there. I mean, a little ring for the guys, a little ring for the women. So,
well, I mean, I guess we should bring it back to tea rather than
the potting,
yes. But tea has consequences. One of the consequences is how tea came about, and we were briefly talking about.
Yeah. So I know, Omair, why don't you say that story?
No, you start. I'll tell the other part of the story.
Okay. According to my, from what I have read, is that when Catherine of Braganza caught Charles's fancy in 1666, she was married to him, right? And she came to the English court. I like to think, in one hand clutching the islands of Bombay, which were her dowry, from the Portuguese to the English, and the other hand she came clutching tea leaves, because Portugal used to trade with China, who used to grow tea, and it was a monopoly. So she bought this whole fancy of drinking tea to the English court, and then the English, you know how they are, right? If something catches their fancy, they don't want to be dependent on somebody. They want to make it their own. So according to what I know is that once they got India completely, they started cultivating Assam and Darjeeling, which were very conducive to growing tea, and started growing tea over there. And that's how, for their tea supply, India so, I mean, you could call it collateral damage. It just became a big tea drinking nation because so much tea was grown over here. That's what I read about it. Would you like to expand?
It's actually a longer story in that sense. And, okay, I mean, I kind of found out because I was driving across Bhutan. So I just took my Jeep and drove from my
What
hometown.
Jeep do you have, by the way?
Mahindra Classic.
Oh, fuck, awesome, yeah.
So took it from, well, my dad's Jeep. So I borrowed it from him. And I drove across Bihar into Bhutan, across Bhutan, and then through Assam. And when I was coming back, I took a wrong turn. And I got a little lost.
The best stories come from the wrong turn.
And I was quite quiet, and then I looked at the sign of the next tea estate, and it was the Naxalbari tea estate. And I realized that's where I was driving through. And a couple of things which are unclear about the story of Bhutan fell into place at that point. Because the British had gone to war with the Bhutanese in 1864-65 for that strip of land, which are called the duars. Because these are the doorways of Bhutan. Yeah. The mountains to trade to each other. You go down and trade at that point. So these were the doorways. But these were also malarial forests, because these are low tropical areas. And the British always have an excuse for war. So what their excuse was that the people in this area were so exploited by the Bhutanese that they asked us to rescue them.
Yeah, like the same way Hitler had an excuse for Poland.
So we always have and this didn't make sense. When I saw those tea estates, and it finally came clear to me that whatever happened in that area, people did not stop being exploited once the British took over. Story of piecing together what tea was. Britain, I think the first time they placed an order for tea was in 1664. The East India Company puts in its first order of tea for 100 pounds of tea.
All right.
By 1750, the annual imports were 5 million pounds.
And from where?
Now this is where the thing is. Only China was producing tea. If you read the official histories, even if you read the Smithsonian history, what you'll find is that they say that a person smuggled tea plant out under the British thing. What they don't tell you is that those tea plants did not take hold. And in fact, a local Ahmad noble pointed out to the British that a certain tribal population in now Arunachal Pradesh grew a similar plant, the black tea. This was then made into, they did a search on this, see if it would work, and then they found out, okay, this is the same tea plant. At that point, the amount of money that the British needed to buy tea from China was so high that the capture of Sindh province in India was done primarily to pay the Chinese.
Really?
So you look at the Tea Party in Boston. Why did that happen? Because of high taxes on tea. So the independent story of America is linked to this. The conquest of India is linked to it.
Bhutan
The
also.
war to Bhutan is linked to it. These are all the stories of tea. And your stories continue. I want to ask very briefly, do you want to show your video and then I'll show some pictures?
You show yours first.
I have lots of pictures. Okay, can you show the old Nehru Indira pictures? So these are pictures which I found at the Indian Embassy in Bhutan, which is this, if you should go, because there's this huge thing, imperial area which we call India House. Nehru travels to Bhutan in 1958. He's 68 years old. It takes 3 weeks. He goes by horseback. This is, by the way, the royal grandmother currently, the wife of the third king. This was the fourth king, the one who just abdicated in favor of his son. I'm not sure you can see this very clearly, but this was the state of Bhutan. Most of these people don't even have footwear at this point. This is a Nehru crossing the Natula Pass in 58, which is the key pass, not Natula? Yeah, which is the key pass for in near Chumbi Valley for the 62 war. And this is after the Chinese have gone into Tibet. The Dalai Lama came to India in 56 to complain about issues. And this 3-week-long trek, that's Indra. And this is this is Nehru in Bhutanese national dress, trying to suck up to the third king, by the way. But, you know, they had a great relationship. And when Nehru made his speech, the translator couldn't keep up. And the third king put the translator aside and said, "Let me translate myself." It's a fantastic political story about, unfortunately, what we know very little of, because Bhutan remains somewhat isolated from our horizon. And there's another picture which I want to show you very, well, it'll go past, but it's Jawaharlal and Indra on yak back, because it wasn't just horses that you rode. It was,
There it is. There
no,
it is.
this is still horses. Oh no, this is yak.
There it is. There it is.
And then you can show the news pictures. This is what Bhutan looks now. This is their Chamlemetang soccer stadium, which holds like 25,000 people. It was a great match, by the way, when I watched this. This was last year. And of course, you have the monks and laity. I'll leave these playing, but it's discovering Bhutan was also to me a journey into history, into these massive politics of India, China, of the expansion of the British Empire, of the way that things like tea reshaped the political histories of the world. And this is a part of our Northeast, of which we pay very little attention to, the tea estates.
I want to ask you a question. I've been to Bhutan and I've realized that they have this thing called gross national happiness.
Please. Okay, anyway, go on.
No, that's one thing. Secondly, I'm a little skeptical about it, because obviously they're bloody happy. India does everything for them. You know, India builds their roads. India looks after them. When they have a crisis, India comes to their help. So why does India do it? Is it because if we don't do it, China will?
Yes, primarily. The contest around Bhutan is basically the contest around Tibet. But it's not merely that India does everything for Bhutan. It's because this is a part of our strategic security space, which was never really, the British did not conquer Bhutan. Bhutan was out of the sphere, which is why it was not one of the kingdoms that merged into India. It remained independent for complicated reasons. Do you know, we buy hydroelectric power from Bhutan. Do you know what price we buy it at? Less than 2 rupees a unit. Do you know how much the states that buy this, and all, West Bengal went from a power deficit state to one with 24-hour supply, all because of the hydroelectric dams of Bhutan. Do you know how much West Bengal charges per unit for electricity? More than 6 rupees a unit. So we get it at less than a third of the cost. And so of course, we are a much, much bigger country. Of course, the hydroelectric power dams are also partially built from aid and loans from us, although we recover more money than we put in. Nevertheless, despite its tiny size, and the whole population of Bhutan is less than 700,000 people, which is, I'm from Delhi, that's a parking lot, right? But nevertheless, it's an odd relationship, which is in our mutual interest. And because Bhutan is able to be independent, it puts the lie to the claim of the Chinese claim to Tibet, which is that this area could not be autonomous. And it is the longest, most critically standing proof against the PRC's lies about why they had to go into Tibet. And that's why it is one of the most sensitive political subjects in the world. But it's such a tiny country, and it's in our little blocked view, that we do not recognize that in the 4,000 plus kilometer unresolved border dispute with China, this thing sits right in the middle. I think somebody said that, it's as small as a pin. But if you sit on a pin, it can be quite painful, right? So,
That is very true.
you wanted to show a video.
Yeah, okay, no, one sec. The reason I want to show this is now, basically, it's to do with litmus, as in the whole fact that, I also said that we're coming to a stage where the written word does not basically reside between the covers of a book. So now what I've started doing is I've also started shooting movies when I go for my stories. And then when the story appears in the magazine, I put this little clip up on YouTube as to tempt people to maybe go and buy the magazine and read more about it, because this is just a taste of what I've written. So this video particularly I had shot when I gone to Spiti just now in January, and the story came out in National Geographic Traveler in in March or in April, I'm not too sure. And it also came out in Top Gear this month. So this is the little video about that.
Was it a co-authored book that you people wrote, or are they two different books?
No, I just met him about 20 minutes back.
Oh, I see.
Mine's this.
Mine's this.
Great. Because
different
I had the occasion to read other travel authors like Bill Bryson and William Dalrymple and Paul Theroux and so many other kind of travel writers. And from the way you speak, I assume, and I'm more or less certain that it will carry the same kind of humor that Bill Bryson's books have. Would you like to add to that? Were you inspired or anything like that?
For me, travel writing has been something that, I only very recently read one of Bill Bryson's books, that is the life and times of the highway kid or something there. Anyway,
Okay.
so but it was a good book. I mean, the way it was. But when I was a kid, I used to go for a lot of driving holidays and all that. And I always used to feel that it'd be good to tell a story. So, but somewhere along the way, as I grew up, I lost the way, and I became an electronic engineer, and I started working as that. And then one day I just saw an ad in the paper, and for a car magazine was starting up. I applied for it. I got the job more for my enthusiasm than my experience. And my job was basically making coffee for people and writing down, typing in something that one guy who couldn't type had written down. But I used to write these travelogues on the side, and once, unfortunately for the magazine, but fortunately for me, 4 ads were dropped. And so they were, oh, we need a filler. So they used one of my stories, and that received. So that's how I started writing about travel, just for the love of, basically I like to tell a story and fib a little, so that's how I guess travel writing came to me.
Okay.
I must confess, this is not, if you're going to read this as a travelogue, you're going to be a bit disappointed, because I think of the 20 chapters, about 1.5 deal with straight out travel. The rest is basically more the travels into the history and the politics of the place. And I don't know if you've read Tim McIntosh-Smith. He's written these 2 very interesting books following in the steps of Ibn Battuta 700 years after Ibn Battuta's journey.
No, I haven't had that occasion. But,
There's
yeah.
one called Travels of the Tangerine, which is in the Middle East, and one called Hall of 1,000 Columns, which is in India. Hall of 1,000 Columns is lighter, but because it's about India, we kind of, I guess, relate to it more. I'd probably fall closer to the McIntosh-Smith or Dalrymple school of writing, because I'm writing about history and the politics and how those things emerged, how this country emerged out of the landscape. And I've written about many people who've journeyed there in some form or manner, in the sense of Nehru's journey, of Anthony Eden's journey, of the initial, of the Jesuits who traveled in the 17th century trying to get to Tibet, about the wandering monks, Tibetan monks of the region. So it's not so much my journeys as more about their journeys. So it's not a classic travelogue, it's more a telling of the history and
History
politics.
of travel in Bhutan, I guess.
So, these are different, whereas Rishad's is very much about the journey.
Yes, that's
About the anecdotes, about what happens to him, how he deals with issues. And so these are 2 very different books in the travel, in the broad
genre of travel.
broad genre of travel.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, because both the genres do look appealing, because in your book it is packed with a lot of history, particularly about from Sholing and Sikkim and Bhutan and those places, and yours is the way you actually saw things. So I think I'll make a beeline to buying those books and reading them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, never. I mean, not never, never say never, but I'd rather do this plenty of times over than that even once. I mean, my thing is that very simple. If you feel cold, you can put on stuff. How much are you going to take off if you feel hot? You know?
Good one. A question for you was more around when you're dealing with sensitive issues around politics, right? How much of it is something that you can put down in a book, and do you need prior permission? And these days a lot of writers get sued for a lot of things. So how do you keep that as part of your writing repository before you go into publishing it?
It's very hard. You have to make a judgment call. For example, I think about a fifth or a quarter of this book deals in one way or the other with the crisis in the 90s, where there was a conflict between Nepali origin population in southern Bhutan and the Tibetan Buddhist population, which is the ruling dynasty and institutions of the Northwest. And it's a very complicated subject. It's on the parallel of something like the Kashmiri Pandit issue, sensitivities. And unlike Kashmir, which has been quite heavily documented, documentation on the Bhutan issue was comparatively limited. And a lot of people who said things to me wouldn't want to be quoted. And the ones who would be willing to be quoted were always extremists. So at the end of the day, I had to rely on what I could document, and the documents, and I ended up looking at documents that were closer to that time. So they were less invested with biases. But they're all biased documents. There's nothing such as unbiased in all of this. You try to triangulate, and you try to put it as honestly as you can. Whether you'll offend somebody, yes. I've got 2 stinking reviews from Nepali papers because it's an incredibly sensitive issue for them. And I think one of them said, the cover is beautiful, but everything else is bad, right? And I went on to say something along those lines. No one has sued me yet. You should be careful you don't make allegations, and there's no need to go out of the way. There's lots of stuff which I didn't put in. And in some ways, this book is a bit kinder to a lot of people than it needs to be. And that's also partially because, I'm an Indian writing about Bhutan. At the end of the day, it's important for me to raise questions when I think there are more issues involved. But I think it's more important for the Bhutanese to address these issues. And in a way, I was safer. I had a lot of help. Some of our top ambassadors helped me get the stuff. A former foreign secretary read the manuscript from back to end. So I kind of, I figured, okay, after that level of vetting, if somebody is going to get after me, I'm relatively safe. So you also need people you trust if you're going to look at really sensitive issues. They didn't agree with me, right? A number of them disagreed with me quite differently. But they said, okay, but it's your interpretation. We're okay with your interpretation. I'm not sure I buy that, but okay, go ahead. So that was also, you make an effort. I'm talking this evening on freedom of expression. So we can discuss this in greater detail then.
Right, and just one final comment. Having traveled 23 states in India from Kashmir to the Northeast and having studied the IIM for 2 years at Shillong, I would definitely empathize with you on the beauty of the Northeast, but I was still rated second best to Kashmir, Kashmir being number 1, so thanks for that. Thank you on that.
So how has writing about traveling changed the traveling itself? Have you try to change your schedule or change your travel to get a good story out of it? Or
It has, I would say, it has made me photograph a lot more because I don't take down notes. I basically take a picture of the place and I remember stuff, and that's how I generally come about. Of course, there's something very intrinsic that I do take it down. But yeah, traveling for a story and traveling for holiday are two different things completely. You're on a holiday and you're going to write about it. I mean, you have to do certain stuff, whether you like it or not. Like, for example, I may have a late night. I don't want to have breakfast in bed and sleep, but I know that there's a very good sunrise spot somewhere away, and I have to get there, so I have to wake up early in the morning, sometimes 4 in the morning, get up there to get a couple of pictures of the sunrise. Then there are places like museums which I don't like, but other people might find interesting, so I have to go and visit them because I need to know about them. I have to write a story down. But most often I do stuff that I really write. I write about cars, so sometimes I'm fortunate. Like just a couple of months back, I had a Ferrari for 4 days, which I could drive around in the Bavarian Alps. So I mean that was a pinnacle of my travel writing. I mean,
Can I get your joke?
Yeah, I had this car, and they'd given me a GPS satellite, GPS with all the roads that had no speed cameras. I mean, I went absolutely ballistic in that car. It's fortunate that I didn't go off a cliff, because I mean, a Ferrari you have to drive with your mind, not with your heart, and you always end up driving it with your heart, you know. So anyway, so I digress. But my point is that so I have to do stuff like that sometimes, even though I don't like it. This I like, but sometimes I have to do a trip. Like when I first started working with the magazine, I had to take a motorcycle to do a shoot to Pune. It was Hero Honda Joy. Oh my God, it was most disgusting. I mean, I don't know who called it joy. Really, the person has a sad sense of humor to call it joy. But I wanted to burn the bloody bike after I took it there. I mean, full throttle, 80, you know, that way. But that was long ago. I mean, now I'm fortunate enough to do, when I go for these driving trips to Goa, I can ask a manufacturer, I can get a good Ducati or a Triumph, and that is more fun. But so basically the point is that sometimes you have to travel and to get a story about stuff you don't want to do, but then it's a good story, so you have to go and do it. So my point is basically holidaying and working as a travel writer are two different things. Unfortunately, people say, what are you? You can go on holiday and you can just write anything. That's not, it's sad that people think of it like that, but I don't think of it like that.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi. Do travel writing books sell in India? Do they sell well?
Please buy some. They're over there. They're right over there.
It depends. Non-fiction generally sells at a steady pace, and I think you'd have to ask publishers more than that.
How many copies of your book sold?
Mine's been out a little less than a year. I think it's about 2,000 copies or so. I don't know have been sold. So I don't have the exact figures right now.
Sure, no
My
issues.
publisher would.
Rishad is a more popular. I think you must be selling quite a lot.
No, I wish I did, but I think the problem is, it's not the, of course this will open up a whole can of worms. So the thing is, the book is there. That is the key. The key is to let everybody know that there's this book which if you buy, you really enjoy. I mean, I know my book is so enjoyable. I could tell people that if you read it, if you don't read it, I'll buy the book back from you. But the point is to let them know. You know, the problem is getting the news out there that this book is in the market. That is something that I'm trying to break my head over, that how to publicize it.
Publicity for books in India is actually comparatively limited. I mean, if you go to London and you go to the tube stations there, the underground, you'll have huge posters for books, which is a huge investment. I mean, you're like, and here you don't even know if a book is on the market or not. So I think you also have to realize that book publishing in India is still comparatively a very young industry. Penguin is 26 years old, and Indian authors at Penguin, and that's the big one here, are still comparatively a smaller set. Their big sales come from people who have recognition, who have won like I think the numbers are like before White Tiger won the Booker, they'd sold like about 3,000 copies in months. The 3 months after it, it sold 75 or so thousand copies.
Or the
People learned, it became a celebrity thing, so then they bought it.
or the
Today you don't know.
other option is ask a political party to burn one book.
Oh, yeah.
Then it will sell.
That's it.
That is my next plan. Get your books burnt.
Yeah. Insult somebody, you know. The Shiv Sena is very good at this, yeah.
Hi, it's me here. Me. So is my question.
Yes, I do.
Yes, very much so. I can guard
Good.
you.
The question is, when there is a lot of video and television programs on travel, why would you want somebody to read a book? People are basically lazy. We got...
Want to know about a place that, okay, you must go here, see this, see that, see that. What my book is about adventures during travel. And that is, I mean, often there are certain things that have happened which are very scary when they happen, but in retrospect they're very funny. Like I was in Kerala once and I was traveling on a day when it was a Bandh, you know, and you know how Kerala is. Okay. So basically it was a.
He's trying to get his book burned.
Yeah. So it was a day when when there was no car on the streets, and I stopped for a cup of tea, and these guys said that, I'm sorry, it's a Bandh day in club, and we'll have to kindly burn your car. Fucking, I said, so no, actually they came and said, so this one gentleman, he came up and he was so proud of the fact that he could speak English. I think in one sentence he put all the words he knew. That may I be please having the kind service of being your interpreter to be seeing what these fine gentlemen are trying to communicate with your fine self. I said okay. Then he came back and he told me that they want to kindly burn your car. So I told him that Baba, car I can't afford to burn. No, can you, I'll give you a spare tire, few used socks and all that. Can you burn that nice bonfire? I'll take a picture also. So I think then they told him that if you bring back this kind of news, we will burn you also. So anyway, then the cops came and I was saved. But basically, so this is not something that you'll find in a travel guide, right? This is my experiences and stuff that happened to me on the road. So that is what my book is about. And honestly, if someone's telling this to you, maybe it is not so funny as if you can take your time over reading it. You can go through each sentence. You can read it again to make you feel nice. So that, I think that is where a book helps rather than the spoken word or being told about travel or being told about this book. Exactly, you can carry the book with you. That's right. Namrata. I have another book in mind which I'm working on currently, and the tentative name of that is Fast Cars and Fidgety Feet. Okay? The copywriter, na? No one. So, but when I did my book launches, when this book was out, a lot of people told me that I had a presentation which I showed the pictures about what I'd written about, and they all said that why weren't there pictures in the book? But what you say is right. Instead of pictures, it would be good if there are illustrations. That would really help. So I think that the next But again, the thing is these margins, it drives the price up. Now my book just now is 198 rupees, which is something that you just buy. Now if I have pictures, especially glossy pictures, the price might go up to 800 rupees. Illustrations will come maybe 500. You'll think twice. MB no one buys, and then with the price so high, you know. So, but yes, what you say is right. I have thought of it, and I wish that my next book does have illustrations or pictures, because the stories I have for the next book have really some great pictures. I mean, since this book and this new one, I've evolved as a photographer, and I think I've got some great pictures.
I think that problem can be solved with e-books. I think with e-book you can have all your photographs and illustrations.
E-books I know, but still, I mean, this fucking holding a book in your hand, you know. And how do you sign an e-book? Huh? Yeah. I'm sorry? On the Facebook wall, I know. Facebook is the bane of our times, really. I'll tell you interesting, very interesting one on the Facebook. We'd gone for the, which one was it? Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, okay? And we went down into the pit lane, Ferrari pit lane, okay, pit lane. And so this car is over there, and this Michael Schumacher's car, okay? It's the, no, sorry, they're going for the Petronas. That time Michael Schumacher was driving for Petronas. And his car was there, and Niki Lauda was there. I was talking to him, you know, the guy from Rush, the movie. So he was there, and then he's saying, see how much it has changed, and see now, this guy also, while everyone's partying, this guy is busily seeing his telemetry from the car, and he's trying to figure out what is wrong. So he was sitting with his back to me. So, and all these huge color-coded cables were coming into the computer. So I said, let me go inside. I went in and saw, he's Facebooking. The guy is on, I mean, he's updating his wall. I mean, he's sitting there with this $1 million car, he's supposed to be working, and he's on Facebook.
I was just even, for one of my story, I wanted to make it a picture book, photo book. So I had this idea, but again, cost was an issue. So I was wondering what I could do. I mean, that is what I thought I would do, was that the book will be in print, which is again affordable. And then there's an e-book, which has pictures. So which is like people can buy on demand and things like that. So it's not up in the market. So cost factor can be worked out like that. So that is what I thought of for my book.
That's a good idea, but I think it involves a lot of effort on your part, you know. And the problem is that, the problem I face is that when I'm writing a book, I'm not earning. You know, I have to keep on writing my usual articles, and I have to keep on traveling. If I don't travel, I don't get stories. If I don't get stories, I don't make money. You know, so it's that big chunk of advance that comes from a publisher once you have something ready, that really helps. Otherwise, you know, you're just working for a year without any. That's what my opinion is, of course, but it's my opinion.
Anyone else?